Hello. Today, it's time for us to talk about a criterion which has to do with your vocabulary. If you remember, the IELTS test, both in writing and speaking part, has 4 criteria. We've talked about task achievement, we've talked about coherence and cohesion, and today we're going to talk about lexical resource. That, not surprisingly, accounts for 25% of your overall score. I'm going to talk about speaking today, but everything I say could be applied to writing as well. So I would like to talk to you about independently improving your vocabulary because knowing from my experience, I know that university teachers, school teachers, tutors, and people who generally teach you the language are not very interested and not very concerned with teaching you to be an independent English learner, which is sad because if it puts you into a position where without paying them or without having classes at school and university, you're pretty much not developing. You depend on them in order to get better. This is especially sad with vocabulary because the internet is full of fantastic resources that will help you increase your vocabulary score, develop your lexical resource. And my goal today is to show you how you can use those sources to prepare for IELTS specifically. But as usual, I'd like to start with the criteria, since we need to understand very well what exactly is required. So here I've got the criteria. And I'd like to talk about lexical resource. These are the criteria for speaking, by the way. If our target score is 6, the candidate has a wide enough vocabulary to discuss topics at length and make the meaning clear in spite of inappropriacies. Well, what it means is basically that you have some core vocabulary to talk about most common topics like traveling, food, free time, shopping, that kind of thing. And you can make yourself clear. Explain what you wanted to say. You're also required to successfully paraphrase. What it means is when you cannot remember a word or an idiom or a phrase, you can generally make yourself clear using other words. However, not a lot of the students at the course are interested in a 6. So let's look at the 7 requirements for a 7. Here it gets a bit more complicated. So the candidate uses the vocabulary resource flexibly. We'll see what it means in a minute. To discuss a variety of topics. Variety means you want to be a bit more well-rounded. The environment, scientific developments, communication, child rearing, politics, that kind of thing will require more advanced vocabulary, of course. You're also required to use some less common and idiomatic vocabulary, and as if it wasn't enough, with some awareness of style and collocation. But again, you are allowed some inappropriate choices, so some mistakes are fine. And you want to be able to paraphrase effectively. Notice how it is different from successfully. We'll see what it means in a minute. So let's look at the first bullet point first. The candidate uses vocabulary resource flexibly to discuss a variety of topics. So a couple of days ago, someone on the subreddit asked me, Well, if I use synonyms, will I get an extra point? The question was weird, so I asked to paraphrase it. And what the woman was basically asking is, if she uses synonyms in her speech or writing, is she going to receive a 7 instead of 6, or maybe 6.5 instead of 5.5, just for the fact that she uses synonyms? And the answer is, of course, no. What it is likely to do is it's likely to increase your lexical resource. But as you remember, lexical resource is only 25%. So what it means is that using synonyms by themselves is not going to increase your overall score. And as you can see, it's not nearly enough to even increase your lexical score. Nowhere in the criterion does it say that you want to use synonyms. Yes, you're required to paraphrase successfully, but the word synonyms doesn't appear anywhere. So if you're thinking of just having a list of tips to fulfill, to tick off, and you're hoping to get a 7 just because you use synonyms, or just because you used one idiom, or just because you wrote a long word, unfortunately, that's not how it works. And these are myths that I hear quite often. So, what does it mean to use vocabulary resource flexibly? Well, this is where collocations come into play. We've talked about collocations, and if you remember, we talked about collocations as chunks of language that sound natural to the native speaker. So, for instance, what do you call it in your language where lots of water fall from the sky? Not just a little water, but seriously lots of water falling from the sky. A native English speaker is going to call it a heavy rain. But in Russian, we would call it сильный дождь, which literally translates as strong rain. Do you see where I'm coming from? It's not just enough to translate your first language phrase literally. No, you want to know the collocation. Heavy rain instead of strong rain, or whatever it is in your country. And using it flexibly means to know enough collocations with the word rain, or using synonyms for the word rain, or having an opportunity and knowing how to describe a heavy rain with some idioms maybe. So for instance, you could say something like, there was a shower, instead of saying heavy rain. Another way to paraphrase it would be replacing the word rain with precipitation, or drizzle, or one of the other hundreds of words that the Englishmen have for water falling from the sky. And this is where the style comes into play. So are you going to say, are you going to use the word precipitation, although it's a long and beautiful word, when you talk to your friend? Yeah, the precipitation was awful on my last holiday. No, of course not. And although it's a long word, and someone thinking that you want to use long words in your speaking in IELTS in order to receive a 7, no, it's not going to work, because you want to talk to the examiner not as you would be talking to a friend, but as you would be talking to an older relative or a stranger in the street. You want to be polite, but not overly formal, right? So the style the awareness of style is what separates a 6 from a 7. You want to say there was an awful shower, so I couldn't enjoy the city at all. You're not going to say the precipitation was awful. But you might say that heavy rains changed my plans. I hope it's clear what I mean by that. Now, less common and idiomatic vocabulary is another thing that everyone's concerned about. What is an idiom, first of all? An idiom is a phrase that, translated literally, loses its meaning, basically. You cannot translate an idiom literally, word to word, and still have it regain its meaning. Lots of students and lots of English learners love the idiom, it's raining cats and dogs, for example. I cannot imagine why. I haven't heard a native speaker use it a single time in my life. So I'm not sure where the fascination with this idiom comes from. Maybe from the visual of this. Yeah, cats and dogs don't fall from the sky, and this might be what makes it so fascinating. And of course, if you translate it into your language, it's not going to mean heavy rain, right? In Russian, we have a different idiom. We say льет как из ведра. It means, translated literally, you could say, it's like it's pouring out of a bucket. If you translate it literally, it doesn't mean heavy rain, does it? So again, using idioms is important, but you want them to be natural. You want them to be appropriate for the conversation, the friendly, not formal, but not overly colloquial as well. Now, paraphrasing effectively is very similar to using something flexibly. So let me give you an example. Imagine you want to talk about something that you found unpleasant, disgusting even. So you might replace the word disgusting with an idiom. And a great idiom for that is, it made my stomach turn. Say, when the waiter served stir-fried scorpions, I'm not sure if it's a thing, I couldn't bring myself to eat it. It made my stomach turn. And it's a great idiom in and of itself, but paraphrasing something or using it flexibly might require something like the change of part of speech. So you will say something like, it was stomach turning. It was stomach turning. It was a stomach turning experience or a stomach turning sight. If you can't remember it, how are you going to paraphrase it? Are you going to say, it made my stomach twist? It made my stomach turn? Sorry, it's correct. It made my stomach jump? It wouldn't be effective paraphrasing, right? Effective paraphrasing would be saying something like, it was disgusting. I felt sick. This is the difference between paraphrasing successfully and effectively. It needs to mean the same thing. So there's a lot to take in, and without a lot of practice and without a lot of feedback, it is difficult to see where you lack. We don't see and we don't know what we don't know. So you generally want someone to help you. But it doesn't mean, as I said, that you are going to depend on a tutor. to help because I'm going to show you some resources. So, as an example, I'm taking this cue card, which you might be likely to encounter in speaking part 2 of your test. It says, describe something expensive you have bought for yourself. You should say where you bought it, why you bought it, how often you use it, and explain how you felt when you bought it. So apart from thinking what exactly you'll talk about, you will also have to run a background check for the vocabulary, because using the vocabulary from the cue card is not going to score very high. If you keep repeating the word buy, expensive, 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 it's not going to be very good for your lexical score and therefore for your overall score. So you want to do the following. Let's identify the keyword. The keyword is buy, right? And here I have some synonyms that you might use instead. One of them does not belong to this context. Can you identify which one? Of course, it's the second one, acquire. People don't acquire expensive watches or cars or, I don't know, cell phones. People acquire companies or they acquire businesses. So although this word is a synonym of the word buy, using it in this context will not score you higher than 6 for lexical resource because you would be not aware of the style, of the context that you're required to talk in. Now, it's very easy to replace it with get, with find, with order, absolutely. And one of the best resources to find synonyms is WordHippo, wordhippo.com. Let me show you how to use it. So once you get on the front page, you want to choose another word for, although it's not the only thing that that it can do. You want another word for buy. Now, because it doesn't know which part of speech you mean and which of the meanings of the word buy you want, it's going to offer you meanings in clusters. Be very careful which cluster of synonyms you use. For example, if we want to find synonyms for the word buy, for the verb buy, this cluster is out because it's a noun. This cluster is out. It's also nouns. This cluster is also out. It is a noun. And only the fourth one is going to be what we're looking for. Why not the fourth one? No, why not the fifth one? It's also a verb. Yes, but it is a different meaning of the verb buy, since the question in the cue card generally, I mean clearly, asks us to talk about something that we obtained in exchange for payment, not about something that influenced, not about something that we influenced in return for money. So be careful and only find synonyms in the correct clusters. So once we found a set of vocabulary, set of synonyms, we have to choose. And it's not as easy as it looks. Some great synonyms here: purchase, get, obtain, acquire, secure, invest in, shop for, pay for, gain, find, splash out on, make purchase of, redeem, score. How do you choose correct ones? For example, a minute ago I showed you that acquire is probably not the best verb to use in this context, right? Because you don't acquire stuff, you buy it. You acquire companies. So you want to choose 3 or 4 synonyms and make sure you understand their meaning. This is where a good dictionary comes into play. So let's, for example, get the verb invest in. There's lots of dictionaries, but I don't suggest using English Russian or English Polish or English Thai dictionary. So I don't I don't recommend using English into your native speech, into your native language translation, because it often loses the meaning, the original meaning. You want the definition. So here I'm using the Cambridge Dictionary online, and here is the definition of the phrasal verb invest in something. This is invest in something. It's given as a synonym of the verb buy. And let's see what it says. It means to buy something because you think it will be useful, even if you think it is expensive. Right? So you buy it in hopes that it will serve for a long time. So are you going to invest in a bottle of milk? No. You're going to invest in a good car. You're going to invest in a good computer. You might want to invest in quality clothes, even though they cost a bit more expensive upfront than fast fashion items. So this is the difference between vocabulary 6 and vocabulary 7 in IELTS. You are really aware of those little differences in the meanings for verbs and words and expressions that you use. This is where 7 appears and not just 6. Let's look at another one. This phrase, it's a phrasal verb actually, splash out on. It means that you buy something to treat yourself. You pay maybe a lot of money. You maybe pay for something that's not worth this money, but you just want it. It's something you want to splash out on, even though it's not very practical maybe. So although both phrases are given to us as synonyms of the verb buy, they're used in completely different contexts. And if you're answering this cue card, if you're talking about a good quality jumper that you bought before going to college in hopes that it will serve you for 4 years, you're not going to use splash out on probably. You're probably going to say, I invested in a good quality jumper to wear it every day. But if you are talking about some luxury item, some, I don't know, gold watch that could have easily been a $20 watch instead, you're going to say I splashed out on it. Right? I hope so. Now, another resource that I'd like to talk to you about is freecollocation.com. It's a website that helps you find collocations or natural phrases, natural expressions with a keyword. Staying on topic of buying something, you might know the word bargain. So bargain is generally some good deal that you got Maybe it was a big discount. Maybe it was buy two, get the third one for free deal. Bargain is a good deal when you buy something. Now, it's not enough just to know the word. As we've seen, you want to show awareness of collocation. And where better to find collocation at a freecollocation.com. So what you do is you just type bargain into the search bar and it gives you the collocations. So let's have a look. First of all, we've got again two clusters. We've got a noun bargain and we've got a verb bargain. They have different meanings. They have different collocations. Now the noun has two different meanings too. Bargain. When something is a bargain, it means it is sold at a lower price. Like, this car was a bargain. It was so cheap. And it's an agreement. But it's not what we're going to look at right now. Let's look at the first meaning. So, an adjective to go with bargain could be absolute bargain. You could say it was an absolute bargain. I got it for 20 bucks instead of 120. It was an amazing bargain. It was a good bargain, a real bargain. All of those are better than just saying bargain because you're showing the awareness of collocation. Verbs. I found a bargain. I got a bargain. I picked up a bargain. Good collocations to use. It was a bargain price. This was a bargain buy. You could be a bargain hunter. A bargain holiday. Bargain basement. I'm not even sure what it means, to be honest. I'll have to look it up. So this resource is great for finding collocations for keywords that you just don't know how to use. And I recommend using it but as long as you find the correct meaning. Now let's look at bargain as a verb. You can bargain hard. You can bargain collectively. You can bargain about, bargain for, bargain over, bargain with. And if you use the same word in your monologue in speaking part 2, you better use it with different collocations, because this is what counts as flexibly using your resource. And this is going to help you achieve that 7. So we've looked at collocations, we've looked at synonyms. Let's look at idiomatic language and less common language too. So remember I told you about being an independent learner? To become an independent learner, you need to cut the cord. You need to stop only reading adapted material, and you want to break free of that fear that you don't understand every single word. The internet is fantastic for that. There's YouTube. There is lots of websites you can enjoy. You can actually enjoy reading. You can actually enjoy listening to people talking about things you love, be it cars, be it fashion, handmade stuff, electronics. So whatever you like, you can increase your vocabulary while listening and reading about it. So let me show you one of the websites. It's my guilty pleasure, BuzzFeed. It's absolute trash, but it's great because it's a native speaker written. And it's got some great short, which is important, short mini articles that are about fun stuff. For example, this is an article about things that people who camp like buying, with some links, sponsored links where to buy this stuff. When I was getting my CELTA, by the way, in 2018, one of my tutors said something that completely changed my outlook at teaching English. She said, everything is a resource. Everything is a resource to give to your students. And you don't actually need to adapt everything. You can teach beginners with unadapted articles and unadapted movies and unadapted speech, as long as you know how to present it, what exercises to build around it. And I'd like to take it one step further. I want to show you that you, at an elementary level, at a pre-intermediate, intermediate level, whatever your level is, you can make use of unadapted materials on the internet, as long as you know how. So let me show you how. So let's look at this title first of all. 27 things people who camp swear by. Everything you need from the basics to outdoorsy extras. So what it means is that there are 27 things that people like to buy to go camping. But there is an interesting phrase. They swear by these things. Now you think, do I know what it means? What does it mean to swear by something? This lack of knowledge is what you're looking for. You need to put yourself in a certain kind of state to start noticing what you don't know, because normally our brain works like this. It just filters out everything that we don't understand and makes sense of whatever we do. So you want to turn that switch and start noticing what you don't know, something that doesn't make sense to you. And, well, ask the internet what it means. So, swear by, an interesting phrasal verb. Let's see what it means. Swear by something. It means to believe strongly that something is effective or useful. What a fantastic phrase to use in IELTS, in the IELTS test. Here is an example. My dad swears by these vitamin pills. So, my dad thinks that these vitamins are effective and useful. Isn't it just cooler to say, my friend swears by this product. My friend swears by this brand. So I decided to buy it as well. Instead of something like, well, my friend likes this brand, so I decided to get it. And this point of growth is what I really want you to learn, because this is what makes you independent. And the whole internet is your oyster. Once you start noticing these little things that you don't know, and you use resources to find out what they mean, you're unstoppable. So I think this is a fun, and we just got it from the title. We didn't even read the article. How cool is that? So while thinking about this cue card, I'm going to make a mental note. Why you bought it? I might think, okay, my friend swears by it. Let's move on. So, I also like the words like basics and extras, because it's clear what they mean, but we'll get here in a moment. So, a basic tarp. I have no idea what a tarp is. Let's see what a tarp is. Okay, it's a top. Like a tent, maybe? That'll come in handy in more ways that you can imagine. But for starters, as a tent footprint, shady cover for your picnic table, or a little rain shelter if you're in a pinch. Okay. So yeah, this is something to keep you from the elements, right? And this little sentence, it's a single sentence, it's packed with fantastic phrases that can help us talk about things we bought. For example, it will come in handy. Cool. Let's see what it means. Come in handy. To be useful. To be useful is a pre-intermediate word at best. But if it comes in handy, it immediately launches you to the 7.0 for your lexical score. So where can it come in handy? Well, probably in the last bullet point. You could say, yeah, it frequently comes in handy. It often comes in handy. Every day, maybe. And you don't even have to paraphrase the word use, saying it's useful. It's pretty useful. I use it every day. I thought it would be useless, but in fact, it is useful. Why say that when you can say it comes in handy every day? Let's see, what else have we got? So, a review. Simple Top took it on a 5-week backpacking trip and a 3-week road trip. Easy setup through the holes with some rope or bungee cables and trees. Used it in sudden rain and hailstorms and as a shelter, as an emergency shelter for 2 nights in one situation, and as a spread underneath a tent or just on the grass for a picnic or pit stop. Classic, pretty much indestructible, lightweight, versatile tarp. No complaints. Definitely a camping must-have. Get it from Amazon. Okay, do you see some phrases to talk about the topic at hand? Well, I think a must-have is a fantastic idiom in this case. Let's put it on our notes. So, must-have. Basics. Extras. Basics. Extras. All those phrases that immediately come to mind to a native speaker, but not to you and me, people who didn't grow up speaking English language. So where you could think of something like, it is a very useful thing, I can't do something without it, a native speaker would say it's a must-have. Where you say this is something that everyone has, a native speaker would say it's a basic item for my kitchen, for example. Where you say something like, I don't actually need it, but it's nice to have, a native speaker would say it's an extra, but it's nice to have. So this is how you basically go about it. In your free time, you find a YouTube video, or you find an article, or you find a website that talks about things that you like. You take a piece of paper, you take a pen, and you start writing out phrases that are not immediately in your vocabulary. Something that you don't understand straight away, or something that you might have forgotten and you think would be nice to use. You check the meaning in the dictionary, make sure that you understand it correctly, and then you put it into use. It is very important that you don't just make a list of idioms and phrases and forget it forever in your copybook, in your notebook. You need to actually use it. You need to actually use the vocabulary that you find. And for that, I suggest you first find a task to apply it to. Like we started with a card, right? And then you find vocabulary for it. and then you do the speaking, and then you record yourself, and then you listen to yourself, and everyone hates doing that, me included, but it is a very good thing to do. And generally, you can be sure that you remember the word and that it moved from your passive vocabulary into your active vocabulary once you used it in context 8 to 12 times. Then you can be pretty sure that you'll use it when it's needed at the exam. So this is basically it. This is how you cut the cord, you wave goodbye to your tutors and teachers, and you start your own journey of increasing vocabulary. So as the assignment, I'm going to ask you to record this part 2 monologue, and there's going to be a couple of vocabulary tasks as well. I hope you find it useful, and I hope it will come in handy, because these are the basics and must-have resources that will help you. With this, I thank you again, and I will hopefully see you at the next session.